On today's show, my guest is New York Times bestselling author Gregg Braden, renowned for his work in bridging science and spirit. Gregg's newest release is Fractal Time, The Secret of 2012 and a New World Age. Gregg's early career began as a senior computer systems designer and computer geologist. Since then, he has spent more than 20 years searching the remote monasteries of Egypt, Peru, and Tibet for the life-giving secrets that were encoded in the language of our most cherished traditions. Gregg's work of disseminating knowledge from these wisdom traditions has led to such marvelous books as The God Code, The Divine Matrix, The Spontaneous Healing of Belief, and his newest, Fractal Time. Gregg's work shows that the key to our future lies in the wisdom of our past. To learn more about Gregg, his upcoming events, and to join him on one of his remote travel adventures, please visit his website. That's GreggBraden.com, GreggBraden.com. Please welcome to the show my extraordinary guest, Gregg Braden.
KG, are you there?
Yes, I'm finally hearing something, your voice.
Well, I heard you when you came on, and there was some doubt as to whether or not you believed you were being heard. So I'm just checking in with you rather than talk 10 minutes and then find out nobody's there.
Yes, I'm here. It's good to hear another voice and to have somebody's out there. So
well,
I'm thrilled to have you with us.
Well, I'm thrilled to be on this program. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm really excited to be with our listeners today. We're going to cover a lot of ground in a very short period of time. I think our hour is going to go by very quickly. And I'm going to follow your lead because there are so many different directions that we could go with this material. I'll let you take us where you think your audience would most benefit, and I'll do my very best to shed whatever light I can on that topic.
Well, we appreciate that. Your new book is Fractal Time, The Secret of 2012 and a New World Age. Tell us about Fractal Time. What is it, and how can we use this information to empower ourselves today?
Okay, you just asked me 3 questions. So I think what I'd like to do is just share with our audience, I was trained as a scientist in the physical sciences, the ocean sciences, the space, and the computer sciences. And it was as a scientist working in the defense industry during the last years of the Cold War in the 1980s that I first began hearing about this mysterious date on the Mayan calendar of 2012. And I didn't know what it meant, and I didn't know why 2012 would be any different than 2010 or 2020 or any other year. What was the big deal about this year? And as a scientist, I began looking at the physical evidence of what our ancestors have said to us in their written records. And that led me into some of the most isolated and remote and pristine places remaining on the earth today where their understandings have been least disturbed by the modern world. And I began to understand their practices and their oral traditions about the significance of this date. And that led me to the hard science of looking into the history of the earth as a geologist and the archaeological evidence of civilizations past, all to bring light into realistically, what can we expect? On 2012 and the years leading up to 2012, there's so much speculation, so much fear. The media is showing so much negative information and frightening people all over the world about the events surrounding this day. And I wanted to bring a realistic perspective to that. And what all of this search led me to then, and it's an ongoing search, it's not over by any means, but what I came to understand is that our ancestors throughout the world and the world today, beyond Western understanding, once we leave our scientific perspective of the world, people have always seen our universe in terms of cycles, and our lives in terms of cycles, and our relationship to the world in terms of cycles. Some of the cycles are very obvious. The 28-day cycle of the moon and how it's tied to a woman's body, for example, or our 24-hour cycles of day and night. Those are easy to see, and we recognize those. But our ancestors were looking at huge cosmic cycles covering vast periods of time lasting 5,000, 10,000, 26,000 year cycles, and how Earth changes in the presence of those cycles, and how people change in response to the Earth changes. And all of this led me to understand that we are, in fact, living a very rare time in the history of the Earth, in the history of Earth cycles, and in the history of civilization. So what I'd like to do is begin with a couple of facts, and with that foundation, then we can have this conversation go wherever we'd like it to go. So are you okay if I do it that way?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So it is a fact. As a scientist, I can say that we are living the last years of a rare and mysterious cycle of time. It's a 5,125-year-long cycle that our Mesoamerican ancestors called a Great World Age. Our present world age began in the biblical era in the year 3114 BC, and it ends with a rare astronomical event in 2012 AD on the winter solstice. That's a fact. It is a fact that we have lived through at least 4 of these world age cycles in the past, and that we are now completing the 5th and moving into the 6th cycle. And it is a fact that each time Earth reaches the point where one of these cycles ends, there are cataclysmic events that happen on the Earth very similar to what we're already expecting, already living. So rather than expecting and anticipating and fearing all of these very frightening things a few years from now, I think it's very useful to recognize that we're already living the most frightening of those predictions, and I think we're doing a really good job dealing with them. We're already living the extremes in climate and the extremes in weather and superstorms that are bringing extremes of hot and cold to different parts of the world. And we're already living the sea levels rising and the ice caps melting. We're already living superstorms wiping entire communities from seashore residences. We're already seeing multiple fires raging out of control on multiple continents. We're already seeing disease that has no medical cure killing millions of people that we don't seem to be able to stop. But we all know that there's much more happening than those things. A lot of really good things happening in the world as well. And it is a fact, and this is why I'm so passionate about this topic. It's a fact that some of the greatest civilizations in the past collapsed and disappeared when they reached the point in their cycle where we are in ours right now, because they made a mistake that I believe we can avoid. And this is the value of understanding the past. And their mistake is simply this. When the world changed, and they didn't understand the cycles and they didn't understand the change, in their fear, the civilizations that disappeared, they began to fight one another, and they began to compete for the resources that were disappearing, and they began trying to prop up systems of living that were no longer sustainable. And when they did that, and when they fought among themselves, everybody lost, nobody won. And those civilizations disappeared. And we've got to ask ourselves, are we making some of those same mistakes today? And if we are, what can we do to change the way we respond to the cyclic changes of our world? Now, when we talk about 2012, with the Mayans, our Mayan ancestors, whose calendars so many people are relying upon to give us information about this age, what they told us very clearly, while they identified a date that ends their calendar, 2012 isn't so much about a day in time, it's about a window of time, a zone of time, because these alignments are alignments that are happening between planets and galaxies and solar systems, and they move slowly over long periods of time. So we're actually living